Welcome everybody to our deep dive tonight. What we're going to do is go through some of the exercise lessons learned and see what we can do about our forms before we get into our other workshops that we plan to do. So we'll do around the room introductions, name and which hub or neighborhood you're associated with. And tonight, if you were at one or both of the drills, say that, because that will help us know your context maybe in the conversations about what changes you think might be needed. So I'm Cindy Barker. I'm with the Morgan Junction Hub, and I was at both of the exercises. So then we will go to Phil Frick, followed by Susan Sanders.
Hi, I'm Phil Frick. I'm co-captain of the Hiawatha Park North Admiral Hub. I'm on the board of the trustees of the Historical Society and the Admiral Neighborhood Association and the West Seattle Transportation Coalition. I live in North Admiral.
Typical over-involved, like so many of you already are. So Susan, followed by Frank Gall.
I'm with Dejan Hub and on North Beacon Hill, and I was at the Jefferson exercise as a message taker.
Okay. So, oops, see, things have already moved. Frank Gall and then Bill Fay.
Okay, I'm Frank Gall. I'm at the Central West Sector, the West Magnolia Hub, and I was only able to make it to the North exercise.
Okay. I already lost track of who I'd said. So did I say Bill Fay was next?
Yeah.
Good.
And then followed by Jim Duran.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, this is Bill Fay. I'm the Queen Anne Hub captain. And I'm also with the Mi'kmaq Hubs organization. That's Magnolia Interbay Queen Anne Hub group. And I was at both exercises, both weekends.
Great, thank you. So Bill, followed by, who did I just say? Jim Duran, followed by Phil from Wallingford.
Jim Durand, I'm co-captain at the Finney Hub, and I was at the Maple Leaf Drill as a volunteer coordinator.
Okay. Phil from Wallingford, and then Anne. I lost Phil from Wallingford. He'll come back. He was Phil the iPad. So Anne, then Darren.
I'll go. Ann Forrest, Victory Heights Hub, and then I helped coordinate the North Seattle hubs, and I was only at the first Maple Leaf drill.
Okay. Darren, and then Louise.
Darren Linker, Gilman Playfield Hub, which is in Ballard, and I was at the Maple Leaf drill.
Okay. Louise, and then Melissa.
Louise Lucy, Laurelhurst Hub. I was an educator at the Maple Leaf drill.
Okay. Melissa, followed by Pam.
Melissa, I am the hub captain for the University Heights Hub near UW, and I was at the Maple Leaf drill.
Pam, and then Sarah.
Hi, I'm Pam. I'm with the Meadowbrook Hub. I was at the Maple Leaf drill, and that's about it.
Sarah, then Patty.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm co-captain of the Madison Park Hub. I was at the Jefferson drill, and I'm inviting you and your volunteers to our drill, probably the last of the year for anybody. Please come to Madison Park October 21st, Thursday, the date of the Great Shakeout, from 4 to 6. And Cindy will be there to help us. Possibly some of you others would come and act, or we'll do the whole drill. Send your volunteers who don't really get it. And I'm gonna go offline. I'm gonna stay here, but be dark because I'm gonna eat dinner.
You missed me eating my biscotti dinner. You might also put that information, Sarah, in the chat.
Okay.
Patty, and then we will surprise Tessa, a new person, and have her do the introductions. I'll refresh when you get up there. So Patty.
Yeah, I'm with the Sandpoint Windermere Hub, and I was at the Maple Leaf drill.
Okay. And then Tessa Hawkins.
Hello. I was at No Drill. I am a hub promoter for the University District P-Patch, and I am on here to get an idea of what a hub captain would do so I can corral hub captains to be part of the P-Patch.
Yep, great. Welcome tonight. And then Pat Mork, if you want to introduce yourself and just tell us what neighborhood you're from and if you were at any of the exercises that we just had.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. I'm from Broadview and I was at the Maple Leaf exercise.
Great. Super. Thank you guys for joining in tonight. So we just have an hour for these deep dives. And so I didn't put a lot of aggressive stuff in. We've got a little bit of an interesting mix. You know, it's good that we've got folks from both camps. And so what I sent out was really kind of like the little tiny bites we wanted to achieve as we roll into the workshops we want to do. There was 2 forms that we used at the exercises on the needs and resources. I am not going to bring them up because I sent them out for you to look at, because I'm afraid if I bring them up, I'm going to lose the screen. But what I did do is I created a poll. So we all get to practice doing a poll. And so I'm going to launch. It's actually only got 1 question, even though for some reason it shows 2. And it says, there was the needs and resources option 1 form, which kind of has the dark print and small squares at the top, and needs and resources option 2, which is a broader band of options across the top. And then you get to also pick, if you really don't care, you get to pick a 3rd one. And so this is up. So while we had this discussion, one of the main inputs we got was we'd created those forms thinking that we would put SMS numbers on there as contacts for people, just in case we had intermittent internet. And that just continues to seem very impractical. But what we found doing this was people were, you know, they needed to write down addresses because if they were going to go get the shovels at somebody's house or, you know, if they were going to work a swap somewhere, addresses and recording of those addresses became really important. So whichever form you pick, we would put addresses on it. It exists already on option 2, but not on option 1. So let's vote and then have the discussion, because I kind of was like, you know, we could hash this to death. And then if we're all in it, everybody wanted a certain form anyway, why, you know, why beat our lips? So if you would please vote.
So Cindy, I really want to vote on this, but I'm very unclear which form is which.
Okay. And
so I don't want to vote for the wrong one.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is.
One of us can share our screen instead of you, Cindy, if you're worried about it freezing.
Yes. And the other thing is there's question number 1 is the one I want you to answer. So
yeah, it makes you
question
answer
number
both.
2 was a mistake. I didn't realize it till I just brought that up. So anybody who voted on question 2, choice 1, vote again up there on question 1. So was somebody going to share their screen other than me?
I can do it. I have it up in my email right now.
Okay, perfect.
Also, just a note, it won't let you submit unless you answer both questions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then just, I'm gonna not answer anything on question 2, you know, just pick something, but your real answer needs to be up on 1. Sorry about that. I do polls about twice a year, so I always have to go re-Google how to do it. Typically errors sneak in. So Melissa's sharing. So this is good. My screen has not frozen yet, you know, with somebody else sharing. So option 1 is kind of the classic old one we had. Option 2 condensed down some of the titling so that there was more place in the description. And then it had the separate name and address, and then the who took the message, that's the scribe, and then the date and time. And the part of when will you return was if somebody said, I need this resource and we didn't have it, and you could say, well, will you come back? And then that way, if somebody was going to come back in 2 hours, when somebody who actually showed up with the resource appeared, they could go, hey, well, the person who needs this, you know, I've got their need right here, but they're supposed to be back here in a few minutes, so. And that was missing off the first one.
The other good thing is that prompts you to ask them, when can you come back?
Yep. So let me see if I can. So does anybody have any questions while it's up? Otherwise, I think we have to have it stop sharing so I can see the poll again.
I have a quick question, Cindy.
Pam, and you'll have to talk closer to your computer. You're kind of muddy.
Well, my computer's under the desk, so that's gonna be a little hard. Let's see if I can crank it up. Okay, is that any better?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, it looks like you've designed this so it's a half page.
Yes.
Is there any reason if you have descriptions in both of those description boxes, you don't have a lot of room to really write because you're trying to capture quite a bit of information? Is there any reason we can't use a larger format piece of paper for more information?
Anybody want to answer that who had the hands-on experience at the tables?
Yeah, that's funny because I remember at the drill, we were asking if they can actually be a quarter sheet instead of a half sheet. So you just can't win, can you, Cindy?
Yeah. That's why we have all these different forms.
Yeah. When we use them for like putting them into the pocket so they can be displayed, it's really just going to be too big to have a full piece of paper for every person's, you know, entry. Even a half felt almost, even the half sheet almost felt a little bit big, but it was a good amount for the description, to be honest, to have like enough detail and everything. So that was my experience, at least. I don't know if anyone else has other thoughts.
Susan Sanders, did you have your hand up? You have to come off mute.
I did. Okay. So I think there's a good compromise between the two forms. I used number one almost exclusively as a message taker because it was so much easier to read. And that just had to do with the typeface and the, you know, the boldness of the letters and stuff like that. Number two had some more options that were really valuable, but if it could look like number one, I think it'd be a lot easier for people to see from a distance and, you know, it was just visually much more useful to me. We just put aside number two almost immediately. And also under description, it says who, what, where, when, I think. We tried to put in addresses of where, if necessary, where things were, things needed to be conveyed.
But if we replaced SMS with address, that's sort of the same thing too.
Well, also, you know, SMS, those of us who use texting know what that is, most of us, but some people had no idea. And including, I think, the person I was working with at one point, and I had to explain. So SMS, if you could just say texting, it would really help.
Yeah.
Or just cell phone.
We were just, but
Yeah.
we're always going, but if we keep saying we're going to put cell phone in there, people are think we're going to call them, you know, like, hey, your order's ready here, you know.
Oh, we just had fun making up numbers because it was a drill.
Yeah.
So we just wrote anything in there just to make them feel safe.
Did you, so Susan, did you find, if you used form number two, did you appreciate the extra space that gave you?
Not that much. You know, we tried to keep our descriptions legible and again, in larger letters and block letters and brief. Okay.
Frank, back to the question of, you know, Pam's original question, you know, half sheet versus full sheet. When you guys, if you guys used there is a full-size version. We generally tend not to use it in exercises just because of the space constraints of having lots of messages and cost of reproduction. You know, we're just cheap and we want to go for the 2-for-1. Frank, when you have done exercises and you've used the large form, how do you guys file or display those for easy matching?
Well, what we used to do, and Bill might fill me in on this, but if I'm following along correctly, we would use like a 3-ring binder and actually hole punch it, because our focus, one of our foci, if you would, was to be able to move it if the weather changed. So some of the idea of hanging it where it's weather at risk, we thought, well, let's make it portable. But we haven't scaled it out to using it with, say, 50 people passing the area. So Bill might want to comment on that.
Well, we haven't had an exercise in quite a while, but the last time we did Queen Anne, basically we went to the idea of writing up on the whiteboards just headlines, just subject lines, and then putting everything else just into a file box. And
So
that's
you
why we
would-
use the full size message forms.
But no, this is the needs and resources. So it's like somebody coming up and saying, I've got adult diapers, or I've got, so you put headlines up saying, here's all the offers.
Yes.
Yeah, and what we did with that headline was we timed it and dated it, so then we'd file it chronologically in that folder that I referred to. So if somebody comes up and the 5th thing down is diapers, when you turn to needs, the 5th one in there should be diapers, and you just open it, the person could read it, make whatever notes they want, close it back up, and hand it to the information organizer. It saved space. It saved space on the whiteboard because it didn't write down the whole message. It just was what the message is about, when it came in, and the time. And
So
the
you guys
day-
never used holders for messages.
No.
You just put everything on
No.
whiteboards. Oh my God.
Whiteboards and file boxes.
And one of the questions was, what do you do with the whiteboard when you run out of space for it? You filled your whiteboard with all those headings. Probably you just start at the top. And if somebody needs something, you just go to that binder and go up to it till the date till you get that's currently at the top. Again, constraints on scale.
Yeah, I'm a little leery of just going to that, because if we'd had that in this exercise where we had about 300 scenarios in play in the first 3 hours, and a good 100 of them were needs and resource matching, I don't know how you guys would do.
Well,
Okay, well, this is useful conversation. I mean, when we go back to people doing it at their own groups, if you guys go, we still want to stick with our large form. I'd love for you guys to scale up and do it at this big, lots of actors flooding at you, and then be able to come back and say, yeah, no, this whole system of change might work for us better, because we're going to have this whole other workshop on how do we manage what's going on so that the volunteer people and the resource people and the information people all can sort of see what's going on. And visual works in some ways, and in a book with headers could work to solve some of that problem, if you can indeed service people without, having people lined up 20 deep waiting for you to flip through the book. So to go back to the poll, super bummer. It's like tied just about. So as usual, no decision, So, and I hear the input from about making the text on the form darker and bolder. Could you do that with form?
Easy to do. Yeah.
So we will keep both of them in the, if there was an easy solution, we'd have just gone, great, easy solution, but there's not. We'll keep them both in there for now. We know that there's going to have to be another 2 workshops coming up. One is the integration of the info resources and volunteer medical. My hand's moving all over the place tonight. And then there is the volunteer position together. So I think we'll end up having more of this conversation about the forms.
The big factor for me between the forms is space to write in. Option 2 has a larger description area. That was the big factor for me. Because you never know what you need to write down that we didn't think ahead of.
Yep.
Consider.
Yep. But it was good input, you know, bold and dark.
Yeah.
helps preserve the space. So I'm gonna, in the poll, share results. I don't know what happens. Oh, well, I guess you guys couldn't see it. So now you can see the results. Ah, sorry about that. I forget that you don't see what's on my screen. So you can see it was like, you know, 5 voted for one way and 6 voted another way. So they're really close to being tied. So, oh, well, it was a good try. So we will do then, we'll jump over to the volunteer question. Now, because my machine has seemed to be pretty good. Should I share it, Melissa, or do you want to share again?
I can share.
Okay, I'm gonna let you share. I just don't feel like having problems tonight, although it's being very, very good today. So the next question, the homework you had was about the volunteer form. We've adapted that multiple times. It also started as a full-size sheet, and we worked to bring it down to a half sheet. And it integrated some stuff that came out of Lake City, forms that we got from like Pierce County Fire Department, all the different skills that could be in play in a disaster. So it's kind of hard to see, but you know, hopefully you did your pre-work, and you can always go to your email if you need to look at it in crisp, clean. What we wanted to make sure is see if there was any changes. Oop, don't go too hot. Don't go. There we go. Just that one. Is there any key types of skills that need to be added onto this before we go, yay, we think we finally got something we can use for a while?
Cindy, can you hear me?
Yep.
Having worked the volunteer table, I would suggest the infrastructure skills that everything be done in alphabetical order. Because in trying to scan on this, when somebody comes in with information, I've got to read each one instead of having somebody say tree maintenance. I know what it's at the bottom, plumbers at the top. That would just work better for me. That's all.
That's great.
And actually for everything, disaster training, the whole thing, by that cert would come at the top.
Yeah, I agree on that. It was, especially when we were like, you know, for an immediate things, it was like, where is this? Where is this? I saw it somewhere. It was hard to definitely navigate a little bit.
No, super input. That's great.
Feedback, yeah, easily done.
I suggest changing plumber to plumbing and electrician to electrical. Because we don't really care if they've been professionally trained versus have the skills.
Bingo.
Roger that.
Also, I didn't know what disaster relief organization was intended for.
I gotta find it here.
That's you know, are they with the Red Cross? Are they ACS? Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a better way to word that?
I think it was more that it appeared to be required information because it was at the top with the other
name. Yeah.
And maybe if it could be put, I don't know.
Optional.
Or just put optional. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Anne, the thinking, and I don't remember if this came out of Lake City or not. Why are we asking that question?
Yeah, maybe it doesn't matter.
I don't
know what we do with the information. Yeah.
It's sort of like,
I think it did come
tell
from a
us the
different
Red
form.
Cross. I mean, I think that there just seemed like there was, you know, you've got other under service skills, and that's where it could go.
Okay. All right, we can take it off. Good.
You know, another thing that comes to me is availability, and maybe afterwards, days/hours. So somebody doesn't have to ask you what you mean, even though it would be obvious to a lot of us.
So say that again, Frank.
When you say availability, days, hours, if we have 3 shifts for discussion, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is.
Yeah. But we don't know what those are going to be. Every hub is going to be different.
Right, well, okay, so availability, the person may, I'm trying to cut down people
Your
having to answer the question.
availability?
Huh?
If we said your availability?
Yeah, your availability, days, hours. Monday and Friday, 6 hours a day. So then when you start making up your volunteer list, you have somebody, you can start plugging in your emergent volunteers on schedules to hand off to the incoming hub captain.
No, this is not necessarily for our internal volunteers.
Got it. Okay.
But saying your availability makes it more clear that that's what that question is for.
I mean, I guess what other availability would it be? Like, how else could it be interpreted by saying, because for me, availability, I feel like that is pretty easily understood. I'm not sure what else it could be interpreted as.
Well, I know, but we had one person saying that it confused them. So I'm just trying to,
Okay.
if there's a way to make it clear without creating shift grids or something like that.
Wouldn't it
It might be helpful to just to add, days/time, because that way they have to be a little more definitive. Like I can be here tomorrow at 9 versus they might just write in I'm available now or today or
Today till 6 or something.
Yeah, and who knows what day that was that they wrote that.
Oh yeah.
It might be faster if there's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if MTW, and you could just circle it and maybe put the time.
Yeah.
And if they say they're available every day, you circle all of them and maybe.
Yeah, it's hard, like I'm available Sunday. Well, what about next week? What about next Sunday? So good input.
I almost feel like, I guess for me, I feel like the simpler it's kept, then the more it can be used over different hubs with different setups, different sizes. So I think that's my thought, is that by adding more detail, it continues to like put restraints on different hubs that have completely different capacities. So that would be my concern of moving it away from the simplicity of it.
Yeah, I think the day/time seems easier to put in without taking up much space than adding all the dates in it. Just the reminder of what we're trying to get to, so we know when you're coming back or when you're available to help. Anne, did you have anything to add?
Sorry, just taking notes.
So I've got reordering in alphabetical, changing electrical and everything to being the trade rather than the person.
Yeah.
Tweaking that availability thing to make it clear. Anything else? Anything missing? Any other ones missing?
Well, I was just going to question the 3 dots after the word availability. I think, let's say make it a little simpler. I don't know what the 3 dots are doing that the other one,
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, and then disaster relief organization take off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. The next one is we kind of scratched our heads, so we just wanted to put it out for you. When I should show you the picture, maybe at the end I'll get adventurous, but I'll show you the picture of what my office floor looked like as I was running all the forms, which are theoretically sitting in a hub box somewhere in a plastic box, but I wasn't going to go rob somebody's hub box to take all the forms from them. So I was sitting here cranking them out at home, and it literally went around the room. And when we were looking at it, we went, oh my God, half of these are logs of some kind, because forms just grow like hamsters or something. So I'm going to let Anne talk about what she observed as she was looking at these.
Actually, maybe I can share my screen. So I did.
Okay.
I did pull the ones we had.
Thanks, Melissa.
Oh, crap.
And then what I would like to do when we're done, I do want to share my screen just so I can see if the stupid program works. Because my next one, I have to do a presentation to some people in Maryland, and I don't want it to find out it freezes with that meeting either. So I'll look for my pictures of what this looked like putting this together for you guys. I'll show those at the end. So if it goes bad, we just end that way.
Struggling. There we go. So I found, can you see this okay?
Yes.
Probably not perfect. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're overlapped. I just threw them all on the same document so I could get some ideas of what's up there. Mostly it's hub manager log and the volunteer one. Those were the ones that stood out. These other two are both like, well, this one, Lake City happens to log everything. And then this one is kind of a radio log, messages coming in. So it really was the keeping track of volunteers and the hub manager log. And let me stop sharing and share something different. I just played with this. Where'd it go?
So actually we now have 5 forms because Anne found a form that wasn't in the email I sent to you. Jesus. She's missing the radio operator activity log.
What can you guys see? I have so many windows open.
Date?
Time, event, log.
Okay. So this was what I was playing with as a way to just see if we couldn't get it down to one document. It's not easy. So date goes up at the top. Log just tells you record everything significant, hand off to the next shift. We were trying to encourage folks to make sure they did that. Write down the time, the event, whatever it is. The hub manager would put big events in there. Volunteer coordinator would keep track of folks coming in and out and the tasks that they sent them to do. Volunteer return, and I just put stuff in light gray letters as a suggestion, but you can use that column for whatever. And then just kind of marking a big X in here that something needs to be followed up on. Thoughts about whether or not this would serve the purpose?
So Anne, could you clarify something for me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
You said 2 people would use the same log, and one was the hub manager, and who was the other one?
The volunteer coordinator. And they wouldn't use the same piece of paper, but this as a generic log could be shared with whomever needs to keep track of something.
Okay, because I like it because the hub manager has to have a log for him or herself to pass that on to the next person coming in that they maintain on their own clipboard as they trot around. You know, at least being a hub manager myself, that's what works, because then you can debrief them off of that. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, so you wouldn't share the log. This is just a generic form that whomever needed to use it could grab a copy of it and start using it in their job.
Yeah.
So can I ask, so for the volunteer coordinator, they, in the event part is where they would put like the location and task and time in and out, sort of like all those details, or?
Yeah, so the time they sent them out would be way on the left. The event would be, I sent John and Susan to 145 Main Street to check out a possible gas leak. And then when they came back to check in and tell you what went on, you put down a time and then follow up if needed. That's how I envision it.
Okay, great.
I like the idea of columns, headed columns, like for the volunteer log, task, address, that type of thing. I wondered if we could have, like in this case, have headers for the volunteer log. And if you're using it for the hub manager, you just cross those out or something like that. And the hub manager needs the full, note space. But for the volunteer coordinator, we could just draw our own lines to turn it into a grid. But I wondered about if we could have headers that were applicable to some stations and not to others.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think the what Cindy and I were talking about was the idea of making one form for a lot of different people. And when I was looking at different logs, I really, and Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, I really only found the hub manager and the volunteer coordinator.
Did
Now,
you
I
look at
think
the email I
medical,
sent?
no, I just Googled, I just Googled logs in the Google Drive. What else is out there that I missed? The radio,
Yeah,
which I
the
think
radio
is a
assistant
different
message
animal
log.
altogether.
Yeah.
And the radio assistant message log and the radio operator activity log.
Yeah.
So, so
In
that's where
my
we got
head,
4.
we have 4. I don't,
But you have a 5th one in there that wasn't in the email I sent.
they
So-
were, one was a radio. I think the other 2 were radios.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
radio
Lakes-
was a whole different beast.
Yeah. I think my point is I'm not sure after looking at it, Cindy, I'm not sure it's worth trying to make one form to fit everybody's needs.
Where I was hearing Jim was if the hub manager does need that whole length to write in, the long description, what's going on. And I can see why the volunteer manager wants to preserve the shorter gridded categories. So if you put those, vol manager, time track in or whatever, then they could just draw a line and that becomes their space they write on, and the hub manager doesn't draw that line. So I kind of get that, but if we can't make it work for, if you could bring 4 forms or 4 or 5 forms down to 1, that's worth the effort. If it's just making do to combine 2 forms, that's probably not worth it.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, because a hub manager log could be just a lined piece of paper, that says time and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we just wanted to see if there's anybody who had worked in something as weird and complicated as this who might have some ideas for us, and made an excellent attempt at it, because we both went, there's got to be a way to solve this, but she's the one who tried, so.
And the radio is really different. It doesn't fit really in the 4.
Yeah.
There's 2 types of logs there.
We also have to work with the ACS people because there's the whole, is there a message number or not, blah, blah, blah. So thank you, Anne, for even attempting that. Sometimes our brains blow up when we get into this stuff, but it's worth the try.
Now, one thing I was thinking about regarding the volunteer coordinator is I could envision us having an on-call form, an on-call list. And I think we could combine that with the list we're showing here. What I was talking about, headers, time in for when we dispatch a volunteer. For the on-call list, that could be planned return, things like that. And so if you're using it as a dispatch log, you would cross out or circle the intended header for that column. But,
yeah, I think for the specific volunteer coordinator stuff, we'll wait till we get into the workshop on the volunteer coordinator at this point. Yeah. Okay.
So Cindy?
Yep.
One quick thing. Franz and Catherine and I had a conversation a while ago about what would you do if a fight erupted or something where people were injured and you wanted to somehow make an incident report of that you would add into the hub manager's log. And we all agreed we didn't want to create a new form. So we came to consensus that you just take the idea of a blank sheet of paper and across the top you write incident report form. You described what happened, the who, what, where, when, and how. You sign it, you date it. I'm thinking if people would get into conflict with each other, a fight, a serious accident, etc., you've documented it and you just attach it to the hub manager's log and you put in one line on the hub manager's log, incident report form, fight with injury on a certain time. And that's not where you give first aid to these people or anything, but you just, something that could be of concern later on, you want to have the facts down when it happened.
Frank, could you use an ICS 213, which is an incident report, and just say for internal use only instead of the to from?
Whatever, this is a completely open thing to throw it out to everybody. A 213, people understand how to use it, or they could be trained how to use it. I'd be interested in what Bill would say on that, but if a 213 works, use it. It's already there. You just say, see 213 date, certain time, here's what happened.
So whichever way it goes, that would be something we could add to the hub manager log that says record important incidents in detailed retained copy or something like that.
Exactly. That way you're covered. If anybody comes back with any issues, police or fire, anybody, you can say, hey, we did our due diligence in recording what happened, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. That, that may come up under the, I'll try and put it into the workshop where we talk about integration of roles,
Sure.
what's important and how do people know what's important. So that's a good one. Any other input on the log thing? Because otherwise we'll go on to talking those workshops coming up.
I just have a question on the logistics. If somebody has supplies of something, can we tell them to bring them, or you have to just go through that other coordinated kind of thing? Or if they have, if they have the diapers, can they come by at noon each day and donate them, or they've got like a ton of bottled water? What can we have a little supply place or not?
So we
How do you ask that?
We go back and forth on this. Everybody we've talked to in emergency management says, do not let them bring donations to you. Do not become the donations manager, because people want to help and they will bring what they think is needed to help and they will dump it on you, and your pile of stuff now needs to be managed, sorted, disposed of afterwards. And if it's food, there's a safety concern, right?
Unless they're all wrapped or something. It was like Costco snacks or something. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But do rats smell Costco snacks and come up in the middle of the night? And
that's a philosophical question.
Yeah. So, everybody pretty much says, don't do that. Now, maybe the conditions say that's what we have to do. Or maybe we go, what we're going to do is we're going to have people bring water, which we know everybody needs, good sanitary, and bring the water because everybody needs that. But please don't bring us your flip-flops in December or your adult diapers that, sort of gotten water, water damage, because people start going, well, I have this really valuable stuff, but here's the stuff I don't care about. That's what I'm going to give you. There was a whole story about how much Salvation Army has to throw away because people donate only the crap, So, the other thing that we might say, I see Frank, would be, if we expect injuries, we might say immediately, bring clean sheets, bring gauze, bring bandages, so that our medical people have something to start with. We know we're going to need that stuff. We're not going to wait to get our first bleeding leg in here and then go, oh, by the way, we need bandages. Frank?
Yeah, one thing, looking in the volunteer info form, what occurred to me, and help me if I missed this, please. If it determines that maybe somebody can volunteer some space for shelter or to set up and keep supplies, and I'm thinking downtown Magnolia, in a store where they'd say, hey, we got space here, we're going to have somebody here, we can help you out, a dry place. So in other words, a place to do that, if it would, or anything like that. Fatima finally opens and they come down and they say, hey, we can let you use the back parking lot or the dining area at Fatima. We've come to conclusion, we agree on this, we're going to open it up. How do we accept that information, and where do we manage it, and where do we record it?
What? Hey, wait. So I was back thinking you were talking about Fatima was going to say you could tell people to bring all their stuff they want to donate.
Right. Okay. Let's just leave it at that for the conversation. Okay. For something like that. But I'm also thinking if a shelter emerges, becomes open in your area, and they come and tell you that, where do you record it and how do you post it? Maybe as a bulletin, but also under have?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the problem we have is if the shelter people who say, we will help you resource shelter, it's on our resources thing, but somehow the message only got over on the whiteboards. So these people who are trying to match people to shelter didn't know it went over here on the whiteboard, and now you have a disconnect. So that's one of the workshops is how do you cross feed that information?
Right.
Ann and I did a little exercise this morning where if you, it depends on what you ask for is where you get sent. You can ask for exactly the same thing, but the way you ask for it sends you two different directions. You know, it was kind of eye-opening to go do this slow motion. That's why a workshop in this is really going to be helpful. So back to the donation management question. I have the same thought of if people have food, water, and bedding stuff, I'm going to say, nope, I don't see anything here right now, but why don't you go down to the shelter that's opened and see if they need it? You know, maybe they hadn't gotten to us to ask, but if somebody really is standing there with a pile of coats and really wants to dump it somewhere, I'm going to send them down to the shelter and say, check with them.
And what shelter is that?
Any shelter that might have opened in your neighborhood, since the city won't get their first shelter open for 4 days. If you've got people who have been are afraid to go back in their home, it's likely churches will, you know, open their doors so people can get out of the rain and stuff. Churches and gyms or whoever we can go convince to open.
So I've got a question. I'm glad you mentioned emergency management, because are there models for what's happened in the United States that they've set up systems like we're talking about with paper and messages?
Yes, actually, we saw Sandy, Superstorm Sandy. That was exactly what happened. Occupy Wall Street said, we know how to manage neighbors and get resources where they need to go, because they were a really well-organized volunteer group. So they took over the basement of a church, and they had this video where it said, well, here's all our Post-its of people who are asking for stuff, and here's how we send our people out to run to them, and here's the people over here making sandwiches. So yes, I mean, everywhere people step up to help, and all our job is to do is try and facilitate matching those.
Yeah.
So Patty, that answer, that's a good philosophical question. I mean, it really does come down to a hub by hub decision. You know, if I see people are gonna bring really useful things and I don't think they're gonna lay there overnight, where I'm worried about people might, you know, stuff might disappear because I'm not leaving guards at a hub, right, overnight, then there's some logic. But we just tell you this so that you have in your mind the possible unintended consequences. You know, like what could happen, what could go wrong.
Yeah, or maybe even ask them, yeah, okay, bring it here, and if it's not used up in 4 hours, you can take it home, bring it back tomorrow if you want.
Right. Yeah, if you can get them to do that, and then say, and if you accidentally leave it, it's going.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's now wet, soggy blankets that we don't know what we're going to do with. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So if I'm the hub manager, where do I get the tents and the tables?
So Phil is like super brand new. He hasn't even gone to a Hub 101 yet. So yes, when we work you through what is at Wallingford, you'll find that you have a great deal because you're at the big Good Shepherd Center. They've got tables, so you know you kind of got that nailed. But most of the stuff we have enough to start a position with paper, pens, pencils, whiteboards, you know, holders, one canopy, and then you start asking your neighbors to bring stuff. You know, I need 3 more tables and chairs. Everybody's got that crap in their house, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
So
regarding the whether you accept supplies and things at the hub, I like the idea of not doing that, where you connect, you know, neighbor A with neighbor B and they coordinate, and instead of all these spokes to the hub in and out, we want to also get like a spider web between adjacent neighborhoods and encourage that.
Yep. Yeah, adopt the street next to you, just go over and see what they need. And if you still have stuff left over, come to the hub. Yep. Yeah. So to switch topics so that we can kind of end on time, we're lining up the workshops. And at the last Hub Captains meeting, I had asked for volunteers who might want to partner with Ann and me and help us on setting these up. Jim, up here in the top part of my screen, has volunteered to do the volunteer coordinator role. So that's going to be where we slow motion walk through, that's assigning someone out and tracking them and inquiring on their skills. And then the other workshop, and we'll be talking with Jim about this, about which should come first, is that integration one where, how do you know what's going on at the other tents so you can be doing the right stuff at yours? It may be that one comes first, so that we get the big picture settled. And then that way the volunteer coordinator role gets designed correctly within that context. But we'll work with Jim on that. It just, since we don't have anybody offering to volunteer to do that other one, we're going to see what happens. So thank you, Jim, for that. Is there anybody who would like to work on that other broader context workshop? No, it doesn't hurt to ask, so.
And expanding on what that other workshop is, it's like there's information over at the information person tent.
Yep.
And then there's information at medical, information at volunteer, and well, especially at Maple Leaf, where we had this incredibly huge neighborhood, evidently. And so our tents were spread out. But anyway, just so that these different components of the hub kind of know what's going on at the other spots. So that, I just wanted to clarify what that need was for the workshop.
Yep, that's exactly right. So that you can do, so that your brain can go, well, I don't have it here, but is there a possibility it might be someplace else? And, if we have to bounce people to other places because we know now that somehow sheltering has shown up over on the whiteboards, because that's a really big need in that neighborhood, then we can more usefully help people. But it's, how do we do that? And the other big piece of that came out was we had tried in a couple of different variations in these two drills where medical, in one case, took everything. They took medical skilled people and they took medical resource requests. And then that seemed to be not a useful use of medical people. Let's keep them focused on saving lives and helping people and just push resources, even if they're specifically medical, back over into needs and resources. But that means that the medical coordinator and the volunteer coordinator have to work together because they're both dealing with services. So. Okay, so that's kind of teeing up where we're going next. Any other questions or our next meeting, Patty, this is for you, no Hub Captain meeting in October. And our one in November is actually not on the 4th Thursday because of Thanksgiving. It'll be on the 3rd Thursday. So I'll be sending that out.
Okay, all right.
Yep. Other
Cindy?
questions, input?
No, just one observation. The question is, for different people at different positions around the hub know what's going on in the other positions, the people who are located to a position and they don't move from it. In other words, information, radio, message. The person who moves from it is in my experience, is the hub manager. So that person floats around so he can understand what's going on there. And that could be the person who could say, hey, information manager, we're getting a lot of whatever over here at Medic, whatever it is.
Yep.
They can share that information as they do, because rarely are you in one spot as a hub manager. You're all over the place.
Right. And that definitely came up, that at the Jefferson debrief, which was, the hub manager can help with that. And then the other piece that came up is if you're an oncoming shift person, you should spend 5 minutes walking around the hub and seeing what is in place before you actually start.
Right.
Because maybe someone who's been stuck over at the, I don't know, make it up, educator tent, and can't move, didn't know something was going on, and you could bring that, and, then that way, when the educator comes back next time, for their next shift, they make it around two and go, yep, it's still going on like that. So. Yep. All right, well, then we get out almost right on time if nobody has anything else. Thank you, everybody, for coming out on a cold, rainy night. I'm kind of happy winter's back, because attendance should go up when we don't have to, look out at the sunshine when we're on our Zoom meetings. So, all right, we'll see. And then I do not know what our deep dive topic in November is. I'm waiting for the transportation emergency manager to get back next Monday. And hopefully transportation will be our topic for deep dive next month. So, okay. Thanks.
All right, thanks a
everybody.
lot.
Good
All
night.
right. Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Tessa, any questions?
No, it was very interesting to hear, and yeah, appreciate it. You run it very well.